The most interesting thing in impact. Some philanthropic foundations around the world are giving well-being funding to their grantees. And the push is coming from some foundations around the world, like the Lotus Foundation in Switzerland, Ford Foundation in the US, Skoll Foundation, Asian Venture Philanthropy Network, and a whole bunch more. Now, this is a really notable trend to watch, and there's three reasons well-being funding is picking up momentum. The first, workplace well-being in social purpose teams is finally beginning to enter the mainstream. Improving workplace well-being in social purpose teams became a major point of discussion during the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, and the recent renewed momentum on racial justice, and rightly so. Those working in social purpose organizations are tackling the world's most urgent issues like climate change, poverty, early childhood education, mental health, and so much more. But increasingly, these changemakers are facing chronic stress, anxiety, microaggressions, burnout, as well as the early onset of chronic illness. And there's tons of studies emerging. New studies are showing that burnout, anxiety, and depression in the social purpose sector is on the rise. In a recent global survey conducted by the Wellbeing Project, found that while 75% of respondents felt that looking after their well-being was very important, a mere 25% reported that they're actually looking after their well-being to a great extent. This is a worrying statistic and has serious implications for social change. But for many decades, well-being was a taboo subject in the social impact world, and in many cases, it still is. It is difficult to have honest, open conversations about this in the workplace. But as long as it remains taboo, we're never going to see systems change and major advancements in the causes you care about. The world needs changemakers to flourish in order to address our deepest challenges and support underserved communities. But instead, there is mass chronic stress. Second, the most forward-looking grantmakers that largely operate on a trust and relationship basis are finally beginning to understand their responsibilities in supporting well-being. It's a bit late in the game, but I guess better late than never. Funders are actually beginning to understand through deep listening and relationship building that they are a major contributor to the chronic stress and talent drain that's plaguing social purpose organizations. With their drip funding, overhead counting, need for excessive reporting, lack of core funding, and so on. And some funders are now beginning to connect the dots and understand the factors affecting workplace well-being. And these are things like living wage, parental leave, health benefits, microaggressions, mental health supports, access to coaching and therapy, and connecting it to the bigger picture of the exponential increase in demand for programs and services as the affordability crisis worsens, the housing crisis worsens, mental health crisis worsens, and COVID-19 support crisis worsens, even as recently as lack of refugee and newcomer supports. Which brings me to my last point. There is no comprehensive index that actually shows how changemakers are feeling year over year. Do workers feel like they belong in the workplace? Do they get enough sleep? How many have daily feelings of exhaustion and fatigue? How many have close friends at work? How many get paid a living wage? How many experience microaggressions at the workplace? These are things we don't have clear data and responses for. You likely don't have a good sense of any of these things, and this is a sector-wide challenge. Lack of data makes it difficult to understand the well-being of changemakers comprehensively. It makes it difficult to raise awareness. It makes it difficult to identify ways employers and funders can strengthen the cultures of trust and care in organizations and across social purpose teams. This is an area of intense interest to Future of Good, and we're actually in the early stages of developing an annual index on changemaker well-being. It's about time that they were open, honest, and nuanced conversations and actions on food, sleep, maternal well-being, intergenerational trauma, living wage, inclusion and belonging, climate anxiety, and all things well-being. And that's the most interesting thing in impact.